AITA for proposing to my fiancée's cousin after she admitted she pitied me? Hi. I, 32M, met Jenna, 29F, through her cousin, Erin, at a company happy hour. Erin is smart, funny, and always has interesting perspectives on our product launches. She mentioned that her cousin was visiting from Portland and asked if I wanted to join them for drinks. Jenna was stunning in that effortless way some women are, with auburn hair, green eyes, and a laugh that made everyone smile. But it wasn't just her looks. Jenna had an opinion on everything and wasn't afraid to voice it. Erin, on the other hand, was the steady presence in the background. Where Jenna commanded the spotlight, Erin listened. Where Jenna criticized, Erin encouraged. I started to notice how Erin would ask genuinely interesting questions about my work, remember details from our previous conversations, and offer real support when I was stressed about project deadlines. The first few months with Jenna were intoxicating. She would text me about her day. We would go out to dinners at places she researched on Yelp, and she'd take me to art galleries or wine tastings I never would have gone to on my own. She made me feel like I was expanding my horizons. When she stayed over at my place, she'd reorganize my pantry and suggest improvements for the living room. I interpreted it as her caring about our shared space, but Jenna's improvements always came with a price tag. She'd suggest replacing my functional IKEA furniture with pieces from West Elm or Pottery Barn. This couch is fine for a college apartment, she'd say, but we need something more sophisticated if we're going to host people. She would critique my grocery shopping, insisting that organic produce and name-brand items were investments in our health. A simple dinner at home would turn into an expensive production with ingredients from Whole Foods and wine that cost more than my entire monthly budget for alcohol. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. Jenna had expensive taste in everything: restaurants, clothes, vacation destinations. She would make comments about my practical choices that sounded like backhanded compliments. When I'd suggest cooking at home instead of going out, she'd say things like, "I guess not everyone values experiences over saving a few dollars." When I bought generic products, she would joke about my college student budget, despite knowing I made good money. The birthday incident should have been a wake-up call. For Jenna's 29th birthday, I planned a weekend trip to Aspen. I booked a nice hotel with a mountain view, made reservations at a restaurant she'd mentioned wanting to try, and arranged for a scenic drive through the Rockies. Total cost was about $1,500, which I considered a generous celebration. Jenna's reaction when I told her the plan was lukewarm at best. "How sweet," she said, but her tone suggested the exact opposite. The weekend itself was tense. Jenna compared everything to trips she'd taken with ex-boyfriends or friends. The hotel wasn't as nice as the one her ex booked in Vail. The restaurant was good, but not as authentic as a place her friend recommended in Boulder. The mountain drive was pretty, but she'd seen better views in Switzerland. Erin, who I had started texting more frequently about work projects and life stuff, had a completely different reaction when I mentioned the trip. "That sounds amazing, Ryan. Jenna is so lucky to have someone who puts that much thought into celebrating her." The contrast between their responses was jarring, though I didn't fully process it at the time. During one particularly awkward dinner in Aspen, Jenna spent 20 minutes telling me about her friend Brittany's boyfriend, who surprised her with a weekend in Paris for her birthday. "Now that's romantic," she said, picking at her $45 steak. "Some men just understand that women want to feel special, not just accommodated." The word accommodated stung. I had spent weeks planning the trip, researching restaurants, and making sure every detail was perfect. But to Jenna, it was just an accommodation, the bare minimum a boyfriend should do, not a gesture worthy of appreciation. The subject of an engagement ring came up a few months ago. We were walking through the Cherry Creek Mall when Jenna stopped in front of a jewelry store window. "That one is gorgeous," she said, pointing to a princess-cut diamond that reflected light from 3 angles. I took a mental note of the style and started doing my research. The ring she'd seen cost $18,000, which was more than I paid for my car. I'm not cheap, but I'm not a fool either. Spending $18,000 on a ring felt irresponsible when that money could go toward a down payment, home improvements, or retirement savings. I found a similar style from a reputable jeweler for $8,500. Same cut, similar size, just not from a luxury brand name. The diamond was certified, the setting was platinum, and honestly, It looked identical to the expensive one to anyone without a jeweler's loupe. I spent 2 weeks researching cuts, clarity, and carats. I learned more about the 4CS than I ever wanted to know. I talked to 3 different jewelers, had the stone independently appraised, and made sure I was buying quality. The final ring was beautiful, around 2 carats, excellent cut, set in a classic 6-prong platinum setting that highlighted the stone perfectly. The jeweler who sold it to me was a third-generation diamond dealer named Sam. "Son," he said, polishing the ring with a soft cloth, "this is a beautiful stone in a classic setting. Any woman would be lucky to wear this." Erin was instrumental in the planning phase. Since she was Jenna's closest family in Denver, I asked for her input on the timing, the location, and even showed her pictures of the ring. Her reaction was immediate. "Oh my God, Ryan. She is going to love this. It's perfect." That reassurance meant the world to me. Erin is different from Jenna in core ways. Where Jenna's energy is intense and demanding, Erin's is warm and encouraging. She listens when you talk instead of just waiting for her turn to speak. When we'd hang out in groups, Erin would ask about my coding projects with genuine interest, while Jenna would be on her phone or change the subject to something more exciting. During these get-togethers, I started noticing how Erin remembered small details about my life. She'd follow up on work projects I'd mentioned weeks earlier, remember my colleagues' names, and offer thoughtful advice when I was dealing with difficult clients. Meanwhile, Jenna would interrupt my stories to tell one of her own that she deemed more interesting. The contrast became especially clear during a barbecue at my place last summer. I was telling everyone about a complex database migration project I had led. 3 months of planning, coordinating with multiple teams, the whole technical challenge. Jenna cut me off mid-story to talk about one of her clients' Instagram campaigns that had gone viral. Erin, however, asked detailed questions about the migration strategy and seemed genuinely impressed by the technical complexity. "That sounds incredibly challenging," Erin said when I finished. "How do you even begin to plan something that complex?" Jenna, who had moved on to showing people photos from the viral campaign, seemed annoyed by Erin's questions. "It's just computer stuff," she said dismissively. "It's not that interesting, unless you're one of those people." The plan was to have dinner at Garden Grace, Jenna's favorite steakhouse. I'd made reservations for Saturday night. I told her I had something important to talk to her about. She assumed it was about moving in together, a topic we had been circling for weeks. I figured proposing at her favorite restaurant, surrounded by the upscale atmosphere she loved, would be perfect. My best friend, Mark, had offered to be my wingman that night, not at the restaurant, but waiting nearby in case I needed emotional backup afterward. "Text me as soon as it happens," he said. "I want to buy the first round of celebratory drinks." His enthusiasm helped calm my nerves about what I hoped would be the biggest moment of our relationship. I spent the entire day of the proposal in a nervous fog. I double-checked the reservation 3 times. I confirmed the ring was still in pristine condition and even practiced my speech in the mirror like some kind of romantic dress rehearsal. My hands were shaking as I put on my best suit, a navy Tom Ford I'd bought for job interviews and which always got compliments from Jenna. On Saturday night, Jenna showed up in a little black dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She brought her 2 best work friends, Maddie and Cassie, with her. This was not part of my plan, but Jenna claimed they were already in the area and wouldn't stay long. First red flag I completely ignored. Maddie and Cassie were her work clique, brand managers who spent their lunches talking about influencer drama and weekend plans that always involved expensive bottomless mimosa brunches. They both drove leased BMWs and lived in trendy downtown apartments that cost twice my mortgage for half the space. They were nice enough individually, but together they formed a feedback loop of competitive spending and constant judgment about each other's life choices. Garden Grace was packed, as it always is on a Saturday night, filled with people for whom a $200 dinner was routine. The hostess led us to our table, a prime spot overlooking the open kitchen where we could see the chefs at work. Jenna immediately started taking pictures of everything for her Instagram story, making sure to capture the restaurant's chic ambience and the expensive wine list. Dinner started normally enough. We ordered steaks, shared appetizers, and they gossiped about office politics while I mostly listened. Maddie was complaining about her dating life. Apparently, the last 3 guys she matched with were too basic, Because they suggested coffee dates instead of dinners at high-end restaurants. Cassie chimed in with stories about a coworker who had the audacity to suggest a group happy hour at a sports bar instead of a cocktail lounge. I mean, I get that not everyone has money, Maddie said, slicing into her $65 Wagyu. But there's a difference between being financially responsible and just being cheap. If a guy won't invest in making a good first impression, what does that say about how he'll treat you long-term? Jenna nodded vigorously. Exactly. It's about effort and priorities. I'd rather have one amazing date than 5 mediocre ones. The conversation took an even more pointed turn when Maddie started talking about her friend's recent engagement. The ring was gorgeous, she gushed. 2 carats from Tiffany's. It must have cost him like $25,000. But that's what you do when you really love someone, right? You don't skimp on the most important purchase of your relationship. Jenna was practically glowing with agreement. Exactly. A ring is an investment in your future together. It's also a reflection of how much you value your partner. I mean, what does it say about a guy if he won't spend a serious amount on something his fiancée will wear for the rest of her life? I felt my stomach sink. The ring in my pocket suddenly felt inadequate, despite the weeks of research I'd put into choosing it. Cassie jumped in with a story about her cousin, whose boyfriend proposed with a cheap ring from an online jeweler, and how embarrassed the cousin was to show it to people. I would just die, Maddie said dramatically. Like, I get it, not everyone is rich, but it's about priorities. If a guy can afford a nice car or expensive hobbies, he can afford a decent engagement ring. It's about showing her she's worth it. I should have recognized the narrative they were building. It was all about status, appearances, and money, the right restaurants, the right experiences, the right men who understood that women were to be treated like queens. I was just so focused on my proposal plan that I didn't see the trap. After the main course, while we were waiting for dessert, I excused myself to go to the restroom. I was actually going to my car to get the ring. I had to keep it at the right temperature because I was paranoid about damaging it. My hands were trembling as I walked back into the restaurant, the ring box hidden in my jacket pocket. The walk to the table felt like a death march. Jenna and her friends were deep in conversation, heads bowed in that conspiratorial way women get when they're sharing secrets. As I got closer, I caught snippets of their talk. Totally see it coming, hope he's not expecting, poor guy. He has no idea. Jenna, I said, standing by the table. My voice cracked slightly on her name. These past 2 years have been incredible. You've made me see the world differently. You've pushed me to try new things. You've made me a better person. I got down on one knee right there in the restaurant, pulled out the ring box, and opened it with visibly shaking hands. Will you marry me? The restaurant hushed, as it tends to do in these situations. Other diners turned to look. Waiters paused. Even the background music seemed to quiet down. The ring caught the candlelight perfectly, sparkling just as I had hoped. For a moment, I felt proud of my choice. It really was beautiful. Jenna stared at the ring for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 10 seconds. Her expression wasn't joy or surprise. It was something I couldn't quite place. Maddie and Cassie leaned in for a closer look, and I caught Maddie's slight frown and Cassie's barely concealed smirk. That's when I knew something was wrong. Oh, Jenna said finally. Just oh, as if I had shown her a mildly interesting item on the menu instead of proposing to her. Is that a yes? I asked, still on one knee, starting to feel awkward with all eyes on us. Jenna glanced around the restaurant, seemed to notice everyone watching, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yes, of course. She held out her hand, and I slid the ring onto her finger, relieved. The nearby tables applauded politely, and we sat back down, but something was deeply, fundamentally wrong. Jenna kept looking at the ring with that unreadable expression, as if trying to solve a puzzle she didn't want to work on. Maddie and Cassie were whispering to each other, barely acknowledging what had just happened. The energy at our table felt completely off. This was supposed to be the high point of our relationship. Let's order a bottle of champagne, I suggested, trying to salvage the moment, to maybe reset the mood. Sure, Jenna replied, her voice flat. She was still staring at the ring, turning her hand under the light as if examining a suspicious stone. That's when Maddie decided to break the tension in the worst way possible. So, Maddie said with a fake cheeriness that anyone at the table could hear, how does it feel to be engaged, Jess? Jenna looked up from the ring, glanced at her friends, then at me, and said the words that ended our relationship. Honestly, I only said yes because I felt sorry for him. I mean, look at this ring. It's pathetic. The silence that followed was deafening. Maddie's and Cassie's eyes went wide, not at Jenna's cruelty, but at the stupidity of saying it out loud. The couple at the next table, who had been smiling at our engagement, suddenly found their dessert very interesting. Even our waiter, who was approaching with the champagne I'd ordered, stopped in his tracks as if he'd hit an invisible wall. "I'm sorry, what?" I said, sure I had misheard. "Ryan, come on. We both know this isn't real. You're a nice guy and all, but you're just so practical. This ring is, what, $8,000? I've seen the one I really want. You could never afford it." I said yes because saying no would have been cruel with everyone watching. Maddie was shaking her head, trying to signal for her to shut up. Cassie was looking anywhere but at me. But Jenna was on a roll, the wine loosening her tongue and letting her true feelings out like venom. "I mean, really, Ryan. You drive an old car. You buy generic groceries. Your idea of a romantic night is Netflix and takeout from the local Thai place. I've been trying to elevate you for 2 years, but you're just basic. The ring is basic. The proposal was basic. Everything about this is exactly what I would expect from you." The words hit like physical blows. Not just the insults, but the cruelty of saying them in public, in front of her friends, in front of strangers who had just witnessed what they thought was a beautiful moment. "And don't even get me started on your apartment," Jenna continued, unable to stop herself. "The same furniture you had in college, the same decor, the same everything. I've dropped so many hints about what we could do to make it actually nice, but you're perfectly happy with mediocre. It's like you have no ambition beyond your little coding job." Every word was designed to wound. This wasn't a drunken rant. It was calculated cruelty, delivered with surgical precision. Jenna had thought these things. She had rehearsed these insults. She was just waiting for the perfect moment to unleash them. "And you know what the worst part is?" she said, getting warmed up by her own speech. "You think you're romantic. You think remembering my coffee order and planning these little outings makes you thoughtful. But it's all so small, so limited. I need someone with vision, with real ambition. Someone who understands that love means grand gestures, not just being reliable." I stood up slowly, the world coming into sharp focus as I processed what had just happened. The woman I had spent 2 years with, the woman I had just proposed to, had just called me pathetic in a crowded restaurant. She had admitted she only said yes out of pity. She had made it clear that nothing I ever did would be good enough for her standards. "You know what, Jenna?" I said, my voice much calmer than I felt inside. "Don't worry about it. I only proposed because I felt sorry for you, too." Her face went from arrogant to stunned in a split second. "What? I felt sorry that you're 29 years old, and you still measure your self-worth by the size of diamonds and the cost of dinner. I felt sorry that you think love is about spending money and being seen at the right places. I felt sorry that you're so shallow you can't appreciate someone who actually cares about building a real future." I held out my hand. "I'll be taking the ring back now." Jenna's mouth hung open as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. "You can't be serious." "Dead serious. Give me the ring." The restaurant was completely silent now. Everyone was watching the show, a live-action soap opera. Jenna looked around desperately, as if hoping someone would come to her aid. But Maddie and Cassie were staring intently at their plates, embarrassed by association. "Ryan, I didn't mean." "Yes, you did. You meant every word." "The ring, Jenna." She slowly twisted it off her finger, as if it were burning her skin, and dropped it into my palm with obvious reluctance. I closed my fist around it and put it back in my jacket. "Enjoy your champagne," I said as I stood up. "I'm sure somebody will pay for it." I started walking toward the exit, but stopped when I saw Erin sitting at the bar. I'd forgotten she mentioned she might swing by that night. Apparently, she had her own dinner plans and decided to grab a drink afterward. She was staring at the whole scene with wide eyes and a look of horror. This is where the story gets interesting. I walked over to Erin, my heart still pounding from the confrontation. She hopped off her bar stool, her face a mask of concern and something else I couldn't quite identify. "Ryan, oh my God, are you okay? I saw what happened. I can't believe she..." I cut her off by pulling the ring box out of my pocket. My brain was on autopilot, running on pure instinct. "I have a crazy question for you," I said. She looked at the ring box, then back at my face, confused. What? Right there at the bar, with half the restaurant still watching and Jenna probably having a meltdown at our old table, I got down on one knee for the second time that night. Aaron, you've been more supportive of me in 2 years than Jenna was in our entire relationship. You listen when I talk. You laugh at my terrible coding jokes. You seem to genuinely enjoy spending time with me without needing expensive entertainment. I know this is insane, and the timing is terrible, but will you marry me? Erin stared at me for exactly 3 seconds. Then she started to laugh. Not a mocking laugh, but a pure, joyful laugh that lit up her entire face. Are you completely out of your mind? She asked, still laughing. Probably, I replied. Yes, she said immediately. Yes, absolutely yes. I slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit like it was made for her. She looked at it for a moment, then back at me, and laughed again. This is the most ridiculous thing that has ever happened to me, and I love it. The section of the bar erupted in applause. Apparently, people prefer love stories where the right person gets the happy ending. Even the bartender was smiling as he slid 2 drinks over to us, on the house. Behind us, I heard Jenna's voice, rising in pitch. What the hell is going on? Aaron and I turned to see Jenna standing by our old table, her face red with rage and disbelief. Maddie and Cassie were trying to get her to sit down, clearly mortified, but she wasn't having it. You just proposed to my cousin, Jenna yelled. Your ex-fiancé, I corrected calmly. And yes, this is crazy. Aaron, you can't be serious. Aaron looked at her cousin with a mixture of pity and disappointment. Jenna, you just spent 10 minutes explaining why Ryan isn't good enough for you. Why do you care what he does now? Why? Because this is insane. You don't even know him like I do. I know that he remembers my coffee order. I know that he helped me move apartments without me even asking. I know that he listens when I talk about my work instead of looking at his phone. I know he's kind to waitstaff, that he tips well, and that he doesn't judge people for shopping at Target. Aaron's voice grew stronger with every word. And I know that he just proposed with a ring that I think is absolutely beautiful. She held up her hand, letting the diamond catch the light. Look at this, Jenna. It's gorgeous. What were you thinking? That's when Jenna completely lost it. You can't have him. I didn't mean what I said. Me and the girls were just joking around earlier. And Ryan, please, can we just fix this? No, I said simply. I'm good. The manager came over, clearly uncomfortable with the escalating scene. I'm going to have to ask you to keep your voices down. We're leaving, Aaron said, standing up and taking my arm with a confident grip. Ryan, want to go get coffee somewhere quiet and figure out what we just did? As we walked toward the exit, Jenna made one last desperate plea. Ryan, you're making a huge mistake. Aaron doesn't get you like I do. She doesn't know about your weird coding obsessions or how you sometimes have cereal for dinner. Aaron squeezed my arm and looked up at me, her eyes sparkling. I love that he has cereal for dinner. It's efficient. And right there, I knew I'd made the right choice. The next few weeks were an absolute whirlwind. Jenna went into scorched earth mode, telling anyone who would listen that I was unstable and had blindsided her with the breakup. In her version of the story, we'd had a minor disagreement about the ring, and I had completely overreacted, ending things and immediately rebounding with her cousin. She conveniently left out the part where she called me pathetic in front of a packed restaurant and admitted she only said yes out of pity. Maddie and Cassie, to their credit, started avoiding Jenna's constant calls for validation. Word got back to me through Aaron that they had told other friends the real story, including Jenna's exact words about feeling sorry for me. Apparently, even her closest allies found her behavior indefensible. Mark's reaction when I called him that night was unforgettable. Wait, let me get this straight. Jenna humiliated you in public. You took the ring back and proposed to Aaron in the same restaurant, right in front of Jenna? When I confirmed, he started laughing so hard he couldn't speak for a full minute. Dude, that is the most epic thing you have ever done in your life. Aaron said yes, right? Of course she did. She's been nuts about you for months. That revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. What do you mean, for months? Ryan, come on. Aaron lights up anytime someone mentions your name. She asks about you constantly at company events. I thought you knew, and we're just playing it cool. Looking back at my interactions with Aaron over the past year, the signs were obvious. The way she remembered details about my projects, the way she would send me coding memes, the way she seemed genuinely happy just to see me. While Jenna was critiquing my choices, Aaron was celebrating them. Jenna's family was divided. Her parents were horrified when they heard the full story, not about my proposal to Aaron, but about Jenna's public humiliation of me. Her mother even called Aaron to apologize for her daughter's behavior and to congratulate her on the engagement. "I have never been so ashamed of my daughter," her aunt told Aaron during that call. "What she did to that good boy was unforgivable. You're lucky to have him, honey." Aaron and I took things slowly, despite the dramatic start. We'd been friends for 2 years, but dating your ex-fiancé's cousin required careful navigation. We went on actual dates. We talked through the weirdness of the situation and made sure we were both entering the relationship for the right reasons. Our first official date was coffee at a little place near Aaron's apartment. We talked for 4 hours about everything: our fears, what we wanted in a relationship, how we would handle the family dynamics. Aaron was incredibly honest. "I've had a crush on you for over a year," she admitted. "But you were with Jenna, and I respected that. I never would have acted on it. What happened at the restaurant was insane, but it felt like the universe was finally putting things right. It turned out we were incredibly compatible." Aaron appreciated my practical nature instead of resenting it. When I suggested cooking at home, she got excited about trying new recipes together. When I showed her my budget spreadsheet, she asked me to help her get her own finances more organized instead of mocking me for being organized. Aaron and I have been married for 10 months now. She is 4 months pregnant with our first child, a daughter we plan to name after my grandmother. We're looking at slightly larger houses in good school districts, and Aaron is already researching pediatricians and daycare options with the same practical focus that made me fall in love with her. Sometimes, the best revenge is just living well. Sometimes, the person you're supposed to end up with is sitting right there at the bar while you're making mistakes with someone else. And sometimes, the most romantic thing you can do is propose to someone who actually means it when they say yes. Comment: "This whole experience taught me a profound lesson about value. It's not about the price tag on a ring, but the priceless feeling of being truly seen and appreciated for who you are." Sometimes, life's most painful rejections are actually course corrections, guiding you toward where you were meant to be all along. So, don't be afraid to walk away from what dims your light, because the right person won't just tolerate your quirks, they will celebrate them, cereal for dinner and all. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.